I would like to thank the organizing committee for putting up such a high-level event. To focus on your question, Ramon, I will not elaborate on what my colleagues have said regarding the renewables potential or the excellent development of interconnections, and focus on what's in between, which is usually the missing part in the energy transition, which is the grid, especially the distribution grid. You know that perhaps the common factor that we have witnessed in the course of our developments across nearly 26 countries is that at some point, the grid, connection to the grid, and then grid operations become the #1 bottleneck in the transition, because it hasn't been addressed early enough in the process. People usually focus on generation and forget about that for €1 invested in generation, be it clean generation, there is a need for €1 to €2 in flexibility, which is the grid, and large duration storage, like batteries or pump storage, but anything that can alleviate the burden on the grid. So I would say that what can be transposed to the fast-track transition of the Montenegrin electrical system is that first challenge, like any others, is the connection and capacity issue. All the DSOs are under pressure to connect additional power plants. Otherwise, we hinder and lose confidence from the investors. Second challenge, once we have these renewable assets connected, is the huge pressure on the existing grid, which translates into curtailments, once again bad for the investors, or blackouts, which is bad for the customers. Third point that also has to be taken into account and transposed here is the resilience regarding climate change. We usually see the grid as something that is not impacted by extreme heat waves or floods or fires. It's quite the opposite, actually. And the resilience of the grid and the capabilities of the grid to heal itself through digitalization and automation is paramount. So in this sense, our lessons learned, and I'm happy that we have signed this agreement with the energy sector in Montenegro to start collaborations in this field, is first to work on the long-term planning. I know it doesn't solve the issue of connection, but the key is to have good planning data in order to efficiently develop the grid. We usually face situations where we have poor GIS, for instance, or poor data. The grids are poorly modeled, they do not reflect reality, and the growth in demand is not modeled as well, which leads to bad investment decisions. We strengthen the grid here where the needs are here, etc. And such a planning through digital tools should be done in collaboration with developers, actually, with generators. This is one of the best practices that we have developed in France with Enedis, our DSO, and that we want to deploy in other countries. So that would be the #1. The #2, obviously, is the automation of the grid. It's not about just building new wires and towers and substations, but making the most of the existing asset. And that's the best answer we can give to the developers in order to build a more resilient and capacitive grid with less downtimes, less outages, and automation and data management is a very powerful tool to increase the availability level of the existing assets. And it actually releases additional capacity of connection for new generators. Third point, I would say, would be the digital management of renewable energies, what we call in the industry a DERMS, which is a software platform which is shared with generators and also with large consumers as well as aggregators. So we make the most of data and IT in order to balance the system at all time. That's why we can also avoid curtailments or share directives with generators when the grid is facing an issue. And we can also rebalance the load of such or such node of the grid so that there's no curtailment, once again, and no blackout. If you factor in demand response, flexibility contracts with large customers, and in the future, EV, the DERMS, or digital solutions to integrate renewables in the grid will be paramount. So it's more about software, I would say, the intelligence and AI than only wires and electrical equipment. Now, I've talked a lot about automation and data, So I would say the other pillar that should be translated into the Montenegrin system should be cybersecurity. The more digital your system, the more vulnerable it is to malevolent threats. And we've seen a lot of issues and malevolent acts taking place in other electrical systems because this specific dimension was not addressed early enough. Last not least, I think it was mentioned by His Excellency the Prime Minister and by my colleagues as well, but education, so investment in human capital to master these new technologies, so not only operating classical assets, is absolutely paramount. And once again, I see that in Montenegro, we have the right regulatory framework being developed at a fast track, and we have also an excellent workforce and high-level university. So I'm pretty sure that under these premises, we can attract investments, not only in the field of generation, but also in the field of grid and flexibility.